I dragged the water tote way up higher on the hill here. There's a nice kind of big rock to prop up the front. I got a shovel and pick and loosened up some rocks behind it, so now it sits flat. It's way up higher on the hill. Way down below us you can see its old rain catchment system down the hill here. But we're pumping it all the way from the lake through this 1-inch poly line. It's 300 feet long, and it's coming with one pump down by the lake, so more to come on that. Alright, this was today's project. It is a trash pump from Harbor Freight, 2-inch pipe. So I'll put on a quick disconnect here in case I need to move it for some reason. Onto 2-inch PVC pipe. And then there's 3 10-foot in length 2-inch PVC out to the lake here. There's a strainer that came with the pump at the very end. You can see it's about 6 inches under the water. There's a check valve so that the pump keeps its prime. And then you can't really see it because it's underwater, but right in front of that check valve there's a T that goes down, and then it has, I put 2 legs across, and that's what's supporting it there so that it doesn't float or sink all the way to the ground and it stays up. So that's how it's right in the middle of the water. It's not sucking in all the gunk from the bottom, but it's not too high out of the water. I put some rocks under the pipe in certain spots to help support it, and then the pump here is also supporting it some. But this thing worked like a champ. I spent all day yesterday using my pool pump that didn't have enough power to pump water this same direction here. That blue one is what I was using yesterday. And we're walking uphill. And up here is about 100 feet uphill. This is where the holding tank was. I had to pump water into this hole in the ground. I put a tarp to help hold the water. Then I had to move my pump up here to the holding tank to continue pumping uphill. Sorry for my heavy breathing. I'm walking uphill and I've been doing this all day long. But now we're just following the lines here. Alright, this is where the holding tank used to be. And I had this ramp to help the blue hose from kinking. And then this was my rain catchment system that we didn't get enough rain. But now that I had, this hose is 300 feet. The blue ones are both 100. So this would be about 200 feet. So since I had extra hose, I originally was going to put the tank right here, and that's where I dropped it off with the tractor because it's kind of flat. We got a raised area there to keep it from going downhill, but the hose was too short, so I dragged it downhill to there where the hose would reach. Now we got extra hose, so I dragged it up. I had to stomp down, yank down some trees, but I dragged it up through here. Here you can see the scuffled leaves. Dragged it up these rocks. First I drained it, obviously. And now it is perched very nicely on this big rock here. Right below this big rock, and it's kind of flat. I had to make it a little flat spot by pulling up some rocks and putting some in the right spots, but look how much water I have. This is after like only half an hour. So today was a huge success, and this only took about half an hour to pump this much water up here. I'm only gonna have to probably pump water once a month, depending how often I shower, but this is today's. Now that this is higher, I should have more water pressure down below. So I'll stop recording, walk down the hill, and test the water pressure way down there. All right, that was my old water tank, which I was using this as my shower. And I just went right down the hill there. Water pressure was pretty weak, but now, watch this. Wow, look how far that shoots. That's so much water pressure. It's awesome. I'll be showering good now. And in these Amazon boxes here, I've got some, well, fans to keep cool. I've got a whole bunch of water filters here that range in different sizes. There's 100 or 1,000 particulates, and then a 500 particulates, and a 200 down to 50 down to 5, which is drinking water. But I figured with multiple filters, then they have the nice feature where you can just flush them there. The only problem is I thought these were garden hose attachments, but they're not. They're 1 inch, not 3/4 fittings. So I'm gonna have to go back to the hardware store, but it's work in progress. And then in this box, I have a propane water heater. So we're gonna use some of this wood and build a little, I guess, outdoor shower somewhere over here that is propane powered. And then I can have warm showers. But now it's time to walk back up the hill. I've been putting, once I put water in my tanks, I estimate how many gallons there are, and then put some chlorine, which is just bleach, in there, and it kills the algae and some parasites. So I'm gonna walk back up the hill and do that, and we'll talk to you later.